Greetings, everybody. What's up? It's Brandon Jones, and welcome back to the Jegna podcast. I'm bringing the podcast out of retirement, and this is how the podcast is going to start running. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just find things that pique my interest to comment on. And something happened recently with the basketball coach from the Omaha, I think it's Creganton Blue Jays, and he had a comment about he was encouraging his players to stay engaged in the game, and he said, stay on the plantation, which I found interesting. And I want to play his apology, and then I want to talk about why I found that very interesting, because we've seen racist incidents of these slip-ups, these in psychology, I would even say they're Freudian slips, which I'll talk a little bit more about as well, where people say and do things and they don't even know where they come from, and there's a reason for that. And I wanted to dive into that in this quick video, but let me go ahead and share the apology, and then I'll get into the psychology behind it, because I think it's something that we can't misinterpret, because it is very, very important for us to understand. So let me play this real quick.
In reference to what I said, I made an awful mistake, and I understand the mistake that I made. And when you make a mistake, sometimes you're not only disappointed in yourself, which I'm extremely disappointed in myself, but the pain that I caused our players who looked to me as a mentor and as a leader. The pain that I saw in their eyes was immense, and that's where my disappointment is in myself. Is that what I've done to some young people that I love very much. So that's a cross that I'm going to have to bear for a while, and I'm going to come out of this on the other end a better person because of it, but it's going to be a process. And I love the guys in that locker room. They know that. They're dealing, I think, with their emotions in a lot of different ways. But we need to get back to Omaha and regroup a little, have some more conversations, which we need to have, so that I can help them and they can help me. But I'm proud of this group of young guys. The effort that they exhibited the second half that's what they're about.
So there you have the clip. The coach there talked about his embarrassment and his pain that he's feeling through the pain that he caused of his players, which no doubt I think he's genuine from that angle. I mean, nobody dedicates their life to coaching to harm and hurt their players. And I think that's one of the beauties of sports, is it really does build camaraderie across race, ethnicity lines for sure, and then sometimes gender lines depending on the sport. But the thing is, this is the psychology in this, is how racism impacts us so deeply, and we don't realize it. And it impacts white folks differently than it impacts what we know now as BIPOC people. But I don't want to talk about BIPOC. I want to be very specific and talk about black folks, because I guarantee you the majority of those basketball players are black on that team, or not the majority. They may have a 50-50 because it is a smaller school, but the players that he hurt most likely were black players on that team. And we have to understand, there's two things that I want to talk about given this situation, because a colleague of mine actually brought this to my attention. I kind of missed this in the feed, but a white colleague of mine, a guy that I've done business with in the past, who really tries. He has a black family. I mean, he's got a black wife and a biracial or multiracial son who is going to be seen in this world as black, and he does his work and he tries real hard, and he advocates for other white folks to do their work. And he brought this to my attention, and he was really questioning himself on this, like, damn, like this is, for some reason, finally hit him where this is deeper than what he originally thought. And I told him, yeah, it is deeper than you originally think, because that racism's ingrained. That racism is deep within the psyche of not just white folks, but it's in the psyche of other folks as well, but it plays out different. And the reason why I say that is the fact that this coach said, stay on the plantation, which I don't know if that's a Southern term. I've never heard someone say stay on the plantation before. I've heard other plantation references, like don't let the slaves overtake the plantation or whatever, but I've never heard a coach or anybody really, I've never heard anyone say stay on the plantation. Where did that come from? That came from within, deep within this person. And he didn't even realize what he was saying, which is my point of the Freudian slip. It's that deep subconscious racism that has been ingrained. And we've had so many examples of athletics, especially college athletics, which makes money on several different dimensions with Black bodies, mostly football and basketball. And if you want a reference for this, check out $40 Million Slave. It's a great book. I think the author's name is William Rhodes. I'm pulling that from the top of my head, but the book is called $40 Million Slave. I read it over 15 years ago. It's a great book. And the NCAA being one of the modern day plantations and using the Black body. And for this coach to reach deep down in himself as he's giving a passionate speech to his team about engaging them and trying to encourage them to go there, where does that come from? That comes from within deep. That comes deep into your subconscious, that this is a slave relationship between you and your players, and either you're an overseer or a master for these people to do the work. As you're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know if he may be making millions of dollars. I don't think so at that level of college. I don't think that he's on that level, but he may be. I don't know. I don't know much about his salary. I looked that up later. But for him to make a living and feed his family and to have the opportunity to even coach collegiate basketball and potentially have the opportunity to get, sponsorships and other things, commercials and things like that in that local Omaha area, being the basketball coach, knowing that there's not a lot of I don't know if there's really much of any major sports in Omaha. So this college team probably has a huge fan base based on just population. And that makes him a leader in that state, believe it or not. That makes him a person, a thought leader, a person that people go to in that state. And respect it and love, because he's a leading figure, because Omaha, Nebraska ain't that big. Besides the Cornhuskers, I mean, that's probably the coach there, the football coach there, probably the basketball coach there is going to get a lot more clout than this coach, but you still play a role, because, that Blue Jays team is a team that will pop in and out of the NCAA tournament year to year. So you're notable. And for him to dig deep into his subconscious and have that Freudian slip of racism, we see it all the time, and it comes from somewhere. Where does it come from? In psychology, we have this concept called the Stroop effect, and the Stroop effect ultimately it's a concept that talks about how memory is encoded. So how we learn things is the same way that we interpret it out. And the way that it's talked about in the general I'm a professor, so in the general psychology textbooks that I utilize, the way that it's often talked about is in safe ways. Like, we learn colors in a particular way. So if we see colors, if we see the word green written in red text, and I say the color that you see, people are going to mess up, because they're going to see the word green, but they're going to see the color red, and they're going to trip up on that. So it does it like it's like a mind trick. Now, the connection to this, the Stroop effect, is also at the same time, we do this with everything. The way that we encode it into our memory is the way that we pull it out when we need it. And we do this with race and ethnicity. So if you've encoded and inherited epigenetically racist understandings of people with black bodies as slaves, with being subjugated, being people that are at your display as you are in your power position, that is in your subconscious. And when we talk about doing anti-racism work and working with white folks, that's the stuff that y'all need to work on, is that deep subconscious thought process, where most white folks don't want to go there. Hell, most BIPOC people don't want to go there if we want to keep it funky and 100%. But that's where that comes from. That's where the plantation concept comes from him, because he, again, in his dynamic, if we were metaphorically using this basketball team as a plantation type of system, he is either an overseer or a master. And deep down in his subconscious, that's what got pulled out, because that's how he's encoded the dynamic between black bodies and white bodies is master slave, overseer slave. So stay on the plantation, my nigga. Dribble, shoot, and score. I'm Brandon Jones. I'll hit you with some more on another episode of the Jegna podcast. Plenty more of these to come. But think about what I'm saying. This stuff wild. Peace out.